Hi, welcome to the first look at DataTier.net. DataTier.net is a program I wrote about 15 years ago, and I tried to sell it as a commercial product, and I quickly learned that developers only buy things if they can put it on their resume, and they can't take a chance on, oh, this guy thinks this is a cool app, so we should use it, with their client or their, boss, their job's on the line. So that's why open source has so many advantages. Early adopters can take a risk and get it tested and popular, and then it can become a widely adapted tool. And anyway, I'm gonna really make this fast because every time I've tried to make this video, it gets way long. But I'm gonna try to include more of the program in it so you don't get bored to death. But to make a long story short, around 2018, around Thanksgiving of last year, I decided to I've been playing with animation for a year, and all my open source code is just sitting on my hard drive. So time to put it out. So I go, hey, I've got 4 days off. I'll do it this weekend. And 6 months later, because whenever I do something, I always want to add new features, and I started making things better. And when I added the new table editor, then I needed a custom method editor, and then to do custom methods, I needed a way to do single parameters and field set parameters, and then custom readers. And all the things I've been doing by hand for 10 years or more, I have a little wizard to help you create the methods. So it'll make the app a little, has to compete with Entity Framework, and I have to admit, Entity Framework has a few advantages that have grown on me, but I still don't like all the amount of SQL that Entity Framework executes. Like even during a production, load, it'll do a bunch of query for the design scheme, and I realize it's just a table it's querying, but I still prefer that to be handled during development time, not production load time, but this or runtime. That's my opinion. And I'm gonna go ahead and skip this. Maybe you read this, or you can pause it if you want to read this more. And just some of the pros. As I mentioned, this is DataTier.net is all stored procedures, so any data access that's done is all done via stored procs. So there's a lot more you can do. If you need to execute multiple things or call off some other, functions or whatever you need to do. Whereas, with Lambda expressions, you can do some things, but it all requires separate trips to the server. So, and one thing I did around 2013, probably, I added these multi-project templates. So it creates your, basically a stub of your 4 project directories, and all you have to do is build and include your projects. So that, is a way to get you loaded with a project really quickly. And I've already mentioned the schema is only loaded at design time. But another thing I like is with the gateway, you can get the last exception really easily. Just say gateway.get last exception, whereas Entity Framework, you have to use interceptors, and it's harder than I ever thought it should have been. And enumerations are supported. I'll show you those more detail in future videos, and as well as the custom method editor. I'm going to show you quickly that. And as I already mentioned, no Lambda expressions. And one last thing is, of course, it's all open source code. So if you have a problem, you don't have to wait for the next version of Microsoft or .NET Framework, fix. You just, go fix it and send me the fix, and maybe I'll learn how to do a merge by then. And there are a few pros to Entity Framework that, of course, Microsoft recommends Entity Framework, but they also tell us all to not, to use it. They also tell us to use it, but they also hide file types by default. So my mom calls me and says, which one of these 3 do I click on? Because there's 3 files with the same name because they want a dumb populace. That's another story. And, I don't claim for a second that DataTier.net has been tested by as many people as Entity Framework. I'm sure internally in Microsoft it's in the thousands, and, worldwide it's probably in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, for Entity Framework. So that's definitely, there will be bugs with, kind of sounds like that Will Be Oil movie, but there will be bugs in DataTier.net, or, things that just don't work for everybody. It's worked for me and every database that I created and ones I've had to work on, but I've had to make some changes, and some client jobs had a database that was just different, so I've had to adapt. So hopefully the program by now is pretty well tested, but some of this code is newer than others. So, and one final thing is some people have complained about the, not really complained, but some people like the automatic saving of changes with Entity Framework, such as if you have all you have to do is load your object and hit context.save changes, whereas with DataTier.net you have to, call save for whatever you want to save, but I kind of prefer that, but it's to each their own. And as far as a sample project, there's quite a few, but DataTier.net was actually built with DataTier.net, or the subsequent versions. I think I did this once in 2010 and once in 2018. I just redid it to where it was built with itself, so that's kind of a geeky, kind of a neat thing, I think. But it has, all throughout the applications, all the database, look in the gateway and just find the references to anything in the gateway, and that's, all the methods, basically, you have the client application, and the gateway is kind of just in between the data access component. So anyway, DB Compare was my most popular project. It probably will be again. It compares two versions of SQL Server, and I added a second version where it compares against a XML. So if you have a SQL Server located on a virtual machine, you can go to it with your XML already copied, or copy the XML from it and come compare it against your local, or an on-site or an Azure SQL or something database. So it was more popular than any of my programs because it had an install version, so Visual Studio wasn't required. And then XML Mirror is another really cool program. If you ever need to create XML, if you've ever parsed the DOM, creating your custom XML readers or writers, you'll love this program. That's all I'm going to say about that. And just going forward, there's lots of things I did in this app. It was all things I wanted, so I'm sure as the public starts using it, there's going to be, more problems found, as well as, other people are going to have different opinions of what it should done, the app should do. So I'll try to kind of get a consensus from the community and not just make it, what I want. So that's kind of another reason why I wanted to make it open source, because, I learned quickly that there's a lot of smarter people than me out there, So this app wouldn't exist if it wasn't for forums. Because a lot of code and some of this stuff, you had to find somebody from Microsoft that knew how to get some of these codes from SQL and tell you what it meant. So the documentation was lacking at the time. Might have gotten better by now, but a lot of stuff is still that way. And as I said, I've used this app for 15 years. Some of it's more stable than others, so use at your own risk. It's definitely, I'm confident I still rebuild all the time with my, my production, we build on dev, of course, but my day job uses this code, and I'm confident. I used to be more scared when I would build at my day job using this, but by now I've done this for so many years that this app, this is some good code. It's not, I don't claim it's perfect, but this is, it's one of my better accomplishments. So hopefully people like this. If not, it won't be the first time. But you do get double your money back and triple on Friday for all my open source projects. So if not every Friday, but most Fridays. So, and I'm going to go ahead and quickly I'm going to go ahead and stop this, and I'm going to show you how to get set up on DataTier.net in the next videos, because otherwise these videos get too long. So I'm going to break these up into like a series. So hopefully you want to stick around, and the next videos will get more interesting and less of me talking. So thanks for watching.